You just moved a 5 GB video file from one folder to another, and something strange happened. It finished, almost instantly. No loading bar, no waiting, no slow transfer animation. 1 second the file was in one folder. The next second, it was somewhere else. So what just happened? Did your phone or computer really move gigabytes of data in a split second? Or is something else happening behind the scenes? Because the truth is, when you move files inside your device, the system usually isn't moving the data at all. And the technology that makes this possible is something called flash memory. Today we're breaking down how flash memory moves massive files almost instantly, and why what you see on your screen is very different from what's actually happening inside your device. But before we dive in, if you enjoy simple explanations of the technology you use every day, subscribe. Because on this channel, we break down complex tech and make it finally make sense. First, what flash memory actually is. Before we understand how files move so fast, we need to understand where your files live. Most modern devices use flash memory. That includes smartphones, tablets, SSDs in laptops, USB drives, and memory cards. Flash memory is a type of non-volatile storage, which means it keeps data even when the power is off. Inside flash memory are millions, sometimes billions, of tiny memory cells. Each cell stores electrical charges, and those charges represent binary data, zeros and ones. Your photos, videos, documents, apps, everything. All of it is stored as patterns of electrical charges inside microscopic cells. But here's where things get interesting. Flash memory isn't organized randomly. It's arranged into structures called pages, blocks, and memory addresses. And this structure is what makes file movement incredibly fast. Second, what happens when you move a file? When you move a file from one folder to another, most people imagine something like this. The system physically copies the entire file, then deletes the original. But that's usually not what happens. Instead, your operating system simply changes the file's address. Think of your storage like a giant library. Each file is like a book, and each book has a location code. When you move a file between folders, the system doesn't pick up the book and move it across the library. It simply updates the catalog entry. So the book now appears in a different section of the catalog. But physically, it's still sitting in the same place. This tiny update takes milliseconds, which is why the file seems to move instantly, even if it's several gigabytes in size. Third, the role of the file system. The reason this trick works is because of something called the file system. The file system is basically the map of your storage. It keeps track of where files are stored, which memory blocks belong to which files, and which areas are free for new data. When you move a file inside the same drive, the system only updates the file system metadata. Metadata means data about data. Instead of moving gigabytes of information, the system changes a few lines in its internal map, and that operation is incredibly small, which is why it finishes almost instantly. Fourth, when files actually get copied. But there are situations where the file does get copied. For example, moving a file from your phone storage to an SD card, moving a file from your computer to a USB drive, moving files between two different drives. In these cases, the storage systems are separate, which means the file must actually be transferred. The system has to read the data, send it through the controller, write it into another memory location, and this process takes longer. That's why copying large files between drives shows a progress bar, because now the system is physically moving the data. Fifth, why flash memory is extremely fast. Another reason file operations feel instant is the speed of flash memory itself. Unlike traditional hard drives, flash memory has no moving parts. Old hard drives used spinning disks and mechanical arms. To access a file, the drive had to physically move a red head to the correct location. That took time. But flash memory works differently. Every memory cell can be accessed electronically. That means your device can instantly jump to any location. No spinning, no waiting, just direct electrical access. This makes flash storage thousands of times faster at finding data, which is why modern devices feel so responsive. 6. the flash controller doing the hard work. Inside every flash storage device, there's also something called a flash controller. This tiny processor manages how data is stored. It handles things like error correction, wear leveling, data mapping, and storage optimization. When your device reads or writes data, the controller decides where everything goes. It constantly reorganizes data in the background to keep the storage healthy and efficient. So even though you think you're just moving files, your device is running complex storage management systems behind the scenes, all in milliseconds. 7th, why some file moves are slower. If moving files is usually just changing an address, why do some moves take longer? There are a few reasons. First, if you move files between different drives, RAIL copying happens. Second, if the storage system needs to reorganize memory blocks, it may take longer. Third, very large directories sometimes require metadata updates for thousands of files. And fourth, some operating systems perform extra verification checks. But even then, flash storage is still incredibly fast compared to older technology. 8th, the illusion of speed. What you're experiencing when files move instantly is actually a clever illusion created by software design. Instead of doing heavy work, the system simply changes a few references in its internal map, and suddenly, a massive file appears in a completely different folder, even though the actual data never moved at all. It's a perfect example of how modern computing often works. The smartest systems don't do more work. They find ways to do less work. So what's really happening? When you move a huge file inside your device, your phone or computer usually isn't transferring gigabytes of data. It's simply updating the file system map. Flash memory keeps the data where it already is. The system just changes where the file appears in the directory structure, which is why a massive file can move instantly. Not because your device is unbelievably fast, but because it's not actually moving the data at all. Closing. Modern storage systems are full of clever tricks like this. Things that look simple on the surface, but are powered by incredibly sophisticated engineering underneath. Flash memory, file systems, controllers, and smart operating system design, all working together so that moving a gigabyte-sized file feels effortless. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more explanations about the technology you use every day, subscribe, because on this channel, we turn complicated tech into simple ideas you can actually understand. And in the next video, we'll break down another piece of technology that most people use every day, but almost nobody understands. I'll see you in the next one.